Welcome into the Point After with Mitch Kaiser. I'm your host, Mitch Kaiser, today. Happy Monday. Coming to you post NFL Draft Combine. I'm back home, back in my apartment here in Cincinnati, Ohio, after spending last week in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine over at Lucas Oil Stadium. Had a blast. Want to briefly recap the week real quick before we kind of get into the Combine results and kind of some takeaways from the week. This is my NFL Combine Points After episode, so this is going to be a solo show this week. Only going to have one episode this week since we had a ton of content last week at the Combine. Only one episode this week, and then we're going to fully transition over into a Mock Draft Monday every Monday episode next week. We'll have a new guest on to talk about their mock draft and go through a first-round mock every Monday. I believe I'm going to start a cadence of 3 episodes per week after this week. So this will just be a 1-episode week. And then we're going to get in the weekly cadence of 3 episodes per week up until the draft itself. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of content thrown at you, a lot of draft content coming at you guys. Going to get 3 episodes and not just 2 per week. So that's we're making a little jump in draft season. And then after that, in the summertime, we'll kind of get back into some college football, look ahead into the 2026 season. And then we'll probably be back to 2 episodes a week. But we're entering draft season, or as I call it, we're entering overthinking season now for the next month and a half, because we're just going to overthink all these takes we made in September and October and really dig into the film again, and kind of this is what I just call overthinking season, because we just kind of go back and rethink all the takes we made months ago after no football's being played. Because it's always about recency bias, it feels like. But yeah, no, anyway, want to quickly, we're going to talk about the Combine, my week last week. Then I'm going to give you guys my 5 biggest risers from the Combine itself, prospect-wise. We're going to check in on quarterbacks because I've got a little rant to go, a little tangent to go off on for quarterbacks and drafting quarterbacks. And then I'm going to go through I'm going to go over the 5 fastest 40 times recorded this week in Indianapolis. And that'll be it. So solo show. Right now, I'm going to start off by just kind of recapping the week last week. Awesome time. Had an awesome experience. That was actually my 4th NFL Combine. In years past, I was covering it for PFF, and this is my first time covering it for my own podcast. So pretty cool. I got to meet a lot of connections, met a lot of great people, did some networking in Indy, a lot of fun. The media radio row room is a blast. I mean, it's just tons of content creators like myself and just from all 32 teams. And it's kind of funny. It's like a big rush on the first few days of it. And then by Thursday and Friday, everyone's almost packed up and out of there, which to me, it always kind of seems counterproductive. You'd think you'd stay for the test results and stuff, the on-field drills, but a lot of people and teams only show up for the podium interviews and from the GMs and the coaches themselves. So I did get a lot of videos at the podiums from NFL coaches, NFL GMs, players, all the prospects themselves. So have a handful of videos on my phone. I'm going to put those on Twitter. I may release an episode of just my podium interviews. Maybe that'll be my 2nd episode this week. Later this week, I might throw them on the back half of a podcast episode, and so you guys can see some of the podium interviews I stood at. But a lot of good takeaways from those, and really enjoyed just the overall time in Indianapolis. I will say the interesting part about going to the events itself, the on-field drills and tests, it's more beneficial to watch it on TV. I gotta admit that. And I don't want to take the media credential for granted, or take sitting in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium for granted, because it's my favorite sports venue on the planet. I love Lucas Oil Stadium. I think it's the best sports venue I've ever been to. I love that the Combine's there. I hope they keep it there forever. Any Colts game I get a chance to go to, I enjoy. I go to the Big Ten Championship in Indianapolis every December, and that's always so much fun of a game to be at. So just a great stadium, a great sports town. But I have to say, once you've been to the Combine once and actually sat in the stands and in the crowd and watched the events, you're kind of good after that. I can't lie. And again, like we're all sickos here. We all are obsessed with the draft. And I probably shouldn't even be saying this on a draft podcast, but it's almost harder to see from the crowd, and you can't really cheer. You can't really talk because it's a quiet environment. Like it's not like a actual football game where you're cheering loudly and yelling and screaming and drinking beer and whatnot. Like you're kind of just sitting there quiet. And for the media people there, the Wi-Fi was not really great. So like for us, it wasn't really like, couldn't really get any work done. So like, but I will say like seeing the drills on TV, you can see everything way better. So like, if you've never gone before, I recommend going. I highly recommend going and checking it out. You can do the combine experience with your friends and family. Like they have the fan events there for all the fans and whatnot. And that stuff is fun. Definitely go to it one time as a fan and like take your friends and family, kids, whatever. But once you've been there once, it's kind of good. Like you're kind of good. Like you've kind of done it all, and you'll probably sit in the stadium honestly for an hour and kind of see them running the 40s, doing the drills, doing the vertical jumps, and then you'll probably look around for an hour and be like, all right, I think we can move on now. Because it's just, there's not really like an announcing or like they don't always have the 40 times on the screen. So like a couple times, like I couldn't even tell what their times were on the 40s. So maybe that's just my personal complaints with it. But yeah, definitely go. Highly recommend going to check the event, to check it out as a fan if you've never been, because it is a cool experience. But once you've been one time, it's kind of the same thing in just terms of being a fan there. For the media, I would say it's definitely beneficial for them to like be able to record content at the stadium itself. And I was able to get some interviews done. But outside of that, I could see the events and the drills way better on TV, just from watching them on TV versus watching them at the actual stadium. So that's kind of all I got to say on that. My 2 cents on the events at Lucas Oil itself. But overall, the Combine is a wonderful event in the football calendar. It's awesome to kind of see all the media people and meet a ton of people in Indianapolis. And I can't wait to see where we're at next year on this show and kind of see where my subscriber count is next year and go from there. Because it's fun to just meet a lot of people who have similar interests. And yeah, can't wait for next year's Combine. So, all right, that's all I got on just kind of wrapping up my week in Indianapolis. Now I'm going to go over my 5 biggest risers from Indianapolis as a whole. So these are 5 prospects who I didn't choose any like top prospects for this because I just, we've talked enough about them. We've spent enough time talking about David Bailey, Ruben Bain, Sonny Styles, guys like that. Like obviously Sonny Styles was a riser coming out of the week. He was a freak athlete, tested through the roof. So like he's probably risen himself into the top 10 now. But we don't need to discuss him anymore. Like I'll kind of leave out some of the top first round guys. This is more, I want to talk more about some guys who maybe were day 2, day 3 prospects who maybe rose into the next day or into round 1 potentially. So we'll kind of see where they've kind of landed now after a really strong NFL combine last week. So first riser for me is Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt. So this was a guy we talked about with Mike Renner last week who is just a pass catcher at the moment. So Mike Renner thinks he's a wide receiver. He still lists as a tight end. For this exercise, I'm going to keep him as a tight end and label him as tight end 1 for myself because I've been in on this dude since 2 seasons ago. Honestly, since his time at New Mexico State. This guy has been a stud athlete in college football for multiple years on end now, dominating at Vanderbilt, matching with his chemistry with Diego Pavia. So had some phenomenal chemistry with quarterback Pavia there. And this guy tested as well as DK Metcalf did, who's a receiver. If you go look at the results and the RAS score, which is the relative athletic score. So every prospect testing at the NFL Combine does something called the relative athletic score, and then they kind of post it out. The highest is a 10. So you can get to a 10, 0 out of 10. Eli Stowers was a 9.47 RAS score, which is phenomenal. So anything above an 8 and 9 is ridiculous type of athlete, and that's what you're looking for at the NFL. There's honestly like a threshold to being a stud athlete in the NFL, and you got to hit the bar. You got to at least hit the bare minimum. Stowers passes that in flying colors. Little undersized for a tight end still, a little scrawny, a little slim. However, throw him at receiver, throw him at tight end, just throw the guy the ball. That's all I want to see. Just throw him the football, let him make plays in the open field. This guy can make dudes miss. This guy can jump over dudes. This guy can catch anything you throw at him. 45-inch vertical, can jump out the gym. Just look at there was that chart, that graph that he tested as well as DK Metcalf, who when Metcalf was coming through the draft, we were all like, oh my God, this guy's like Megatron. So Stowers, I want to say he had finished with 900 receiving yards at Vanderbilt this year, like a 90 PFF grade. All the metrics are there. All the numbers are there. The production's there. The only question is if he is too small to play tight end or not. He's still a tight end in the NFL's eyes, and he's still a tight end in my eyes. He's tight end 1 to me. I've said before, I have him above Kenyon Sadiq, who is the Oregon Ducks tight end, who also tested very well. Phenomenal athlete Sadiq is. I don't want to take away from his combine because he probably would be a lot of people's biggest riser from this week. Stowers impressed me more. That's my tight end 1. I just think he's the better player. I think his production's been better at the college level than Sadiq. I'm not going to be mad if he takes Sadiq over Stowers because I get it. I can see the athlete. Sadiq just ran like a 4.3 or something like that, which Stowers wasn't far off. But I just think in terms of football production and catching ability, that favors Eli Stowers over Kenyon Sadiq. But Sadiq had a phenomenal, I forget his RAS score too, but it was his exact score. But I want to say it was in the 9s as well, one of the highest tight ends. So I won't be mad if you have Sadiq tight end 1. Again, I think Stowers is better and gonna be I think he has star written over him in the NFL. I think he's gonna be the best tight end from this class. I think you should take him in the first round, but I understand if you take Sadiq above him. Both phenomenal athletes for the position, and both still have some meat on the bone in terms of overall football development and at the tight end position. Stowers has been playing the tight end position for 3 seasons. He was a quarterback at New Mexico State, or coming in from high school. So imagine what he could look like with another year of development in an NFL offense as a tight end and what all they could teach him. So I'm very high on Stowers. You probably won't find many people higher on Stowers than I am, going back to the beginning of college football season. So I'm really excited to see where he ends up. If it is a wide receiver, so be it. But either way, this guy is just a pass catcher. Put him at tight end, put him at receiver. I don't think he's the blocker that most NFL teams would want their tight ends to be. So gonna have to get creative there. However, that's kind of the only question mark really left for Stowers is his blocking ability for the tight end. But otherwise, just a phenomenal pass catcher and a phenomenal athlete. One of my biggest risers from the week. Okay, moving on. So the Miami Hurricanes offensive line got a lot of buzz after the college football playoff. We all saw how strong of a O-line it was, how stout it was. Most of it was for right tackle Francis Mauigoa, who might be a top 3 pick ultimately. He tested great. He's phenomenal, but we're not going to talk about Mauigoa. Again, we're not going to mention the top prospects in this draft because they've risen as far as they can. I don't know if Mauigoa can get any higher than top 3 pick, which is what he's projected at the Cardinals right now. So we're going to talk about the left tackle here. Mauigoa on the right side was dominant. We're going to talk about Markel Bell now, left tackle, absolute monster, just a behemoth of a offensive lineman for the Miami Hurricanes. Markel Bell, 6'9", 345 pounds, out of Miami Hurricanes. He's a junior. I believe he's only 21-year-old prospect. Big behemoth, just an absolute monster. And he's super athletic for his size. Super athletic. Had an 83.5 pass blocking grade according to PFF this past season. Was very good in the playoffs. Very good in the championship too. If you look back at the Indiana game, he gave up 4 pressures to Ohio State. 58 pass blocking grade to them, 58 PFF grade, 88 pass blocking grade against Indiana. No pressures to Indiana, was phenomenal in that game against a very dominant defensive line that the Hoosiers had. So, I mean, I think one of the biggest takeaways just from the playoff, Miami's playoff run, was how freaking good their offensive line was. And that starts up front with Francis Mauigoa and Markel Bell. Markel Bell made a ton of money for himself this combine, and he may enter. He's likely a day 2 pick now. could be entering day one, depending on how needy teams are the O-line. Now, I know the Browns need one. The Rams possibly could. Here are the measurements for this guy. So first off, again, 6'9", 345 pounds. He ran a 5.36. I don't know how many 6'9", 350 pounders could run a 5.36 40-yard dash. I don't even know if I would pass that. And I'm 5'10", 150 pounds. I would, but it would be close. Markel Bell and I would be in an absolute foot race. And that would not be good for me going up against a guy 200 pounds more than me. So that's how good of an athlete this guy is. 36 and 3/8-inch arms, huge arms, and a huge, massive wingspan, 87 and 1/8 inches wingspan. Just massive human being, just an absolute mover of bodies out there in the O-line. You could see the run game that Miami had this past year. You could see the protection for Carson Beck in the pocket. This guy's a beast. And I that's one of those where I don't know how high he'll rise in the draft. I would probably take him in round 2, but that's one of my biggest risers. Everyone was talking about Mawanoa, but I think they were almost forgetting about how good Markel Bell is, and they didn't realize it till they saw how well he tested this week. So shout out Markel Bell, left tackle for Miami, a biggest riser from the Combine. Moving on. Next riser, cornerback Tacario Davis from the Washington Huskies. Now, this is a 4-year starter from college. I was super high on this guy a couple seasons ago at Arizona. This guy is 6'4", great size, tall, slender, lengthy, long arms, long legs, good strides, elite size, elite physical tools for a cornerback. However, the consistency has not always been there for Tacario Davis, and that has been his problem for a couple seasons now in college football. You look back to his 2023 season at Arizona. This was the first season I discovered him. Now, I was watching tape on Tet McMillan for Arizona, and I was watching an Arizona game because I wanted to see how good McMillan was and Fafita throwing him on offense. And then on defense, I spot this huge 6'4" corner who's just a ball hawk who's just breaking up every pass. Just 12 pass breakups in 2023 for Arizona. 85 coverage grade that season for Arizona. That was the season where I saw it pop off the screen and I was like, this guy can be a first-round corner. This is a CB1 at the next level. And then he had a rough season following up that in Arizona. His coverage grade, his PFF grade dropped from an 80 to a 50 at PFF. He was giving up a lot of yards in the secondary. I believe he went from 200 yards allowed his sophomore year, 400 allowed his junior year, and then this past year at Washington had a much better season again, improved, brought the coverage grade back up from the 50s to, I believe, a 65 coverage grade, according to PFF, which is much better. Allowed less than 200 yards in coverage this season for Washington. The tools are still there. The athleticism's there. The speed is there. 20 career pass breakups total. So this guy is a magnet to the ball. Good ball tracking skills at the corner, at the DB position. And listen to his RAS score. Relative athletic score, he posted a 9.76. That is elite. That is one of the highest for cornerbacks that we saw in Indianapolis last week. So I'm still in on this guy because the tools, I know he's been inconsistent in his career, but I think this guy gets it. I think he understands what it takes. I'm a believer in the physical traits, and I believe in the highs that we've seen on his tape going back to Arizona more than I believe in the lows. Because when you're talking physical traits that you want at the next level to teach a guy up, train a guy up, this is it right here. Tacario Davis has it, and I think whatever NFL team gets him is gonna be salivating and be really excited to develop him in their secondary. So that's why he's one of my biggest risers. All right, moving on. Moving on, next biggest riser, linebacker Kyle Lewis from Pittsburgh. So this is a guy that Trevor Sigma was high on. This is a guy who was a Senior Bowl standout, who tore it up down in Mobile, who just stood out amongst anybody at the Senior Bowl and was just a beast there. Kept it going this week in Indianapolis, tested well, phenomenal athlete, put up all the numbers you want to see. 8.64 relative athletic score, which is very solid. That's good enough. Again, that checks the boxes. He's not in the nines, but that's almost like a threshold box. Like, check that box. This guy can play in the NFL. I think this guy is NFL ready. I think he's going to have an immediate impact somewhere. He may ultimately be a nickel. So he may be a hybrid nickel and play some safety eventually, but this is a guy the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could use as their linebacker. So I know Trevor Sigma's high on him. I'm sure he would love that pick to his Buccaneers. Maybe not at 15 overall, but day 2, I would absolutely love Kyle Lewis ending on the Buccaneers. Again, I think this guy has the tools and the traits that you're chasing at that nickel position in the NFL to be an absolute stud. So, all right. That's all I have on Kyle Lewis. Last player, my last biggest riser from the week, 5th riser here. And this is a wide receiver from my alma mater, who I was not expecting to test this well in Indianapolis. That is Jeff Caldwell from the Cincinnati Bearcats. This dude was a stud. I mean, this dude had one of the best combines I've ever seen as a wide receiver. And 9.99 RAS score. 9.99. That is almost broke the scale. That's the highest we saw in Indianapolis this week. Just a phenomenal athlete. 6'5". Big 6'5" stature. Huge for a receiver. That is T. Higgins size. That is the size of T. Higgins. And guess what? He ran a 4.31 40. A 4.31 40 time, which was 5th. 5th overall amongst all prospects. All players in Indianapolis, not just wide receivers, all players. 4.31 at 6'5". That is flying, man. That is absolutely flying for Jeff Caldwell. And the production was so-so for him in the season. I got to be honest. As a Bearcats fan, I was a little underwhelmed with him in the season, but now I'm almost going back and seeing what I missed on tape because the athleticism was there. Just graded in the 70s his whole career, transferred from Lindenwood, 74 PFF grade coming there, had a 70 grade this season at Cincinnati, 478 receiving yards. Again, solid production, average numbers at the level. Brendan Sorsby, I would say, ran more than most college quarterbacks did. So, they definitely would. We were more of a running team. Everyone knew that. The Cincinnati Bearcats are a running team. They like to run the ball first and foremost. So that was kind of their offense this season, get a little play action. So they weren't really throwing the ball too much. So I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't question Caldwell's production too much on why his numbers weren't great. Plus, he had a couple guys like Cyrus Allen, Joe Royer, Sorsby was also throwing the ball too. And like I said, we also got our running backs in space as pass catchers as well. So I wouldn't worry too much about the college production and just like his overall numbers as a wide receiver in the box score because this guy is as good of an athlete as it gets as a wide receiver. And the 9.99 RAS score proves that. So I would expect him to put up better production than he ever did in college. I wouldn't worry too much about just the 400 yards. Again, I thought he was solid. Like, I always thought he was good for Cincinnati, but nothing ever showed me that he was going to test like this. So I'm almost just wondering what I missed during the season. So excited for Jeff Caldwell. Pumped to see where he ends up. I think he's truly entering. Like, he is now a top 10 wide receiver in this draft class. He definitely is for me. He might enter some people's top 5 wide receivers in the class. So very excited to see where he ends up. Again, as a Bearcat fan, I did not expect him to test this well. So super excited for Jeff. Super proud of him and the combine he just put out. I was at his podium. I did ask him a question. I want to reference that real quick. So I stood at Caldwell's podium and I asked him what his favorite memory of being a Bearcat was this season. And he said trying Skyline chili with his teammates. So eating Skyline chili. So shout out Jeff Caldwell if you're listening. I'm not as big of a Skyline fan as you are apparently, but I appreciate the honesty in that question. So in that answer. So All right, that is all I got on my 5 biggest risers now. We're going to go now quickly. I'm going to go over the 5 fastest 40 times. So I want to save my next segment for the end because I think that's going to be my longest segment where I kind of just go off on a rant and you guys will see what I'm talking about here. But really quickly, I want to talk about the 5 fastest 40 times because we actually just ended with number 5. And that was Jeff Caldwell, wide receiver from Cincinnati, as he posted a 4.31 40-yard dash time. So if you don't know about the 40-yard dash, and you're looking for every year, that's kind of the most popular event at the combine, where you see guys get in their track stance and their running stance, and then they blow the whistle and they sprint 40 yards as fast as they can. A good time for a wide receiver is like, I would say you want to be below 4.4. Like that is considered fast. Anything in the 4.3s is you are flying. You are absolutely flying. And if you go below that in the 4.2s, you are in the upper echelon historical of all-time best 40s. I want to say Xavier Worthy still holds the all-time fastest, which I think is 4.21, and John Ross was second, which is 4.22. And those receivers haven't exactly had the best NFL careers, so it doesn't always translate to immediate success and stardom in the NFL. So it's almost like we talked about like checking a box, like you almost just have to break a certain 40. For example, Carnell Tate ran a 4.54. I'm not worried about that at all. That means nothing to me. Carnell Tate is a beast. Carnell Tate's a stud. Dude is gonna be great at the next level. I'm not worried about drafting Carnell Tate, and neither should you be. So don't freak out that he ran a 4.54 and then not draft Carnell Tate, because I think you're overthinking it. As we said, overthinking season. So number 5, that was Jeff Caldwell, wide receiver from Cincinnati. Deion Burks, number 4. Deion Burks, wide receiver out of Oklahoma, ran a 4.30. So 0.1 faster than Jeff, 4.30. Deion Burks was a good player, good slot guy, good receiver for the Sooners. Dealt with some injuries in his career there, so never really had a full healthy season. Hasn't exactly had the best quarterbacks thrown to him either, so I would kind of take his production with a grain of salt. I do think Burks is going to be a good player at the next level. 4 of these are wide receivers, by the way. 1 is a safety, which we'll get into him in a second. Number 3, Xavier Thomas, wide receiver out of LSU, ran a 4.28. So 4.28, that's impressive, man. I mean, that 0.2 below 4.3, so that is. I would have to double check what Baron Brown ran and Chris Hilton Jr. ran, because those were the other LSU guys. Because both Renner and Trevor thought they were going to be below 4.3, so I'd have to double check. But LSU had some track studs, man. They had some track stars there. So speaking of track stars, Lorenzo Styles checks in at number 2 here. Safety out of Ohio State, brother of Sonny Styles. Sonny, I believe, ran a 4.43 or a 4.42. One of them. Either way, him and Arvell Reese both were 4.4s the same time, which they are just – those two are like transformers, man. I mean, both of them. Like Sonny and Arvell, man, I just think they're both gonna be stars in the NFL, and I wouldn't overthink drafting either one of them. And Caleb Downs. I mean, any Buckeye defender, like you can't go wrong. It's almost like drafting a Kentucky guard if in the NBA. Like just draft a Kentucky guard and you're gonna be fine. Just draft a Buckeye defensive player and you're probably gonna be fine. You're probably gonna hit a home run with that. So all right, and then last, the fastest 40 time recorded, fast 40-yard dash. A couple of people got this right. So we made a couple predictions last week on my show, predicting who was going to run the fastest 40 time, and they were right. This was Mississippi State wide receiver Brendan Thompson, who checks in at a 4.26. Officially clocked in 4.26. Brendan Thompson, Mississippi State wide receiver, who we kind of predicted he was going to be right. So got that right. That kid made himself some money. I think he entered day 2 discussion. So go watch the tape against Arizona State for him. He was my player of the week in week 2, that game where he had like 6 catches for 133 yards, 2 touchdowns, including the game winner against Arizona State in a phenomenal football game. Phenomenal game. Phenomenal night game in week 2. Just flip on that game and you will see him just outrunning DBs. It's crazy. So I was not surprised when he was the fastest 40. It's kind of what we expected. And so. All right, that's it. That's all. Those are the 5 fastest 40-yard dash times recorded last week. Again, Xavier Worthy still holds the record, but Brendan Thompson, wide receiver from Mississippi State, finished with a 4.26, fastest record in 2026. Excited to see where he ends up. I think he's probably a round two or three guy now. So a little small, a little undersized, but that's to be expected. This guy put over 1,000 receiving yards in the season. I think Thompson's a good player, man. I think you should draft him on day 2 and be happy with it. So, all right. My last segment now. Now, this is going to be a longer segment that I may just go on a rant on here. So, I'm going to call this segment "Don't Fall for a Quarterback Just Because They Had a Good Combine." I'm going to say it again. That's the official segment title. We're gonna keep this as an annual segment post-combine every year for as long as I do this show. Because every year this seems to happen, and I warn teams every year that this is coming. Again, the title of the segment: "Don't Fall for a Quarterback Just Because They Had a Good Combine." And what I'm getting at is every year on Twitter we see these dudes tear up the combine because they throw these long balls against air with no defenders on the field, and then we have all these wild overreactions, and then suddenly these quarterbacks we don't know much about are first-round picks all of a sudden. Like I said, it's overthinking season. It's draft season. I mean, that's what we do. But again, this is my plea. This is my warning to people, and whatever I know. I mean, take whatever from me. I'm just been watching college football my whole life, and you start to see some patterns of successful franchise quarterbacks and kind of what it takes to make it at the next level and truly be that dude, that difference maker, and that star and the face of your franchise. So here's a couple things that matter to me at the quarterback position, and then I'll kind of get into like the next part of this. Couple factors that matter to me as a quarterback and what you are looking for as your franchise star. So like if you are drafting a quarterback, a couple prereqs. Now, this isn't like, I'll just say it. I want to see 2 full seasons as a starter. 2 full seasons as a starter. I need you to start 2 seasons for your university. Healthy, not non-injured seasons where you finish both seasons healthy. You play every game, and we see where you end up. I want 2 full seasons because there are a lot of examples of quarterbacks having one good season, one really good season, entering the pros, and that not necessarily working out. Mitch Trubisky is the best example of that. Kind of just came on strong in his final year at North Carolina. No one really knew much about him because he sat the bench. I forget, Jacoby Williams maybe? Man, that's some old ball knowledge if I got that right. But either way, you have to have enough physical tools. So you have to check the box in terms of physicality and physical traits. You don't have to have Josh Allen tools. I'm not saying, or Justin Herbert tools. Like, that would be nice. That would be great. The better the tools, the better the projection, the better the hype, the better the ceiling, whatever. But if you don't have at least adequate physical tools, you're not going to make it. And it's almost like we're kind of seeing it with Bryce Young a little bit. And I love Bryce Young. I was a Bryce Young believer. I still am. I was proud of the season he just had and leading his team to the playoffs. I don't think many expected that. I think he's gotten better every year and can still develop. But that was a number 1 pick. You don't normally say that about number 1 overall pick. And I think if you ask the Panthers today, they're probably rethinking that pick, which, again, Stroud hasn't exactly been phenomenal either. So we'll kind of see where that draft ends up, but that's another conversation. The physical tools, like you have to have enough. And what I mean by that is like 6'1". Like you gotta be like at least like 6'1", which is like Caleb Williams. I don't think, like, when I was growing up, it seemed like every quarterback prospect was like 6'4" and above, and like that was like you had to be 6'4". I don't think that matters as much anymore. You see a lot of guys who are like 6'1", 6'2", 6 foot. Caleb Williams was only 6'1". Drew Brees was 6 foot. I mean, he was a tiny guy. Like, look at it. So Julian Saint's teetering that line. Now, this isn't, we're not talking about next year's class, but Julian Saint is one of those quarterbacks who's teetering the line of having enough physical tools. And it's like, he passes the test, but barely. And it's almost like that could affect him in the pre-draft process when he does declare someday, because he's a small guy, tiny guy. He has a lethal arm accuracy, just elite arm accuracy, and puts the ball on the money from the pocket, can read a defense like no one's business. However, he's not a big guy, and he's not running, and he's not really throwing it 80 yards downfield. So that's just kind of one of those things. You have to elevate others around you. You have to make others better. You have to elevate the play of everyone else, and not vice versa. If you are bringing the team down, that's a problem. If you are the one who's not delivering the ball on time or an accurate football to the open receiver, that's a problem. That's a bad thing. And then you're not the guy, you know? And I always think about this. The best example of this is, like, I would say MAC quarterbacks, or even like take a guy like Drew Mestemaker from North Texas. Look at the season he just had. That dude has as bright a future in the NFL as any quarterback in college football next season, including Dante Moore and Julian Sayin. Mestemaker, what he just did at North Texas, elevating guys around him, throwing for the most passing yards in the country. Like, at the beginning of the season, nobody even knew who Drew Mestemaker was. And now you had teams spending $1 million on him in the NIL transfer portal because they see how talented this guy is and how he makes others around him better. Look at the receivers he's throwing to. Wyatt Young is a stud, don't get me wrong. But, like, again, these are all North Texas athletes. These are all recruits who went to North Texas. And what Drew Mestemaker was able to accomplish with them is insane. So I think doing it at a level like that is more impressive. I like to think of Drake May as an example, because obviously you guys know me as, you know, Drake's biggest fan, that what he was doing at North Carolina versus with a team who is not as talented as a team like Ohio State or Georgia, that is always more impressive to me than, say, you know, where, you know, you have a good O-line or something. So that's just my 2 cents on the making others around you better. You got to have the personality. Got to have the leadership. You got to have the aura. Whatever you want to call it, you got to have it. You got to have the it factor. This is maybe something that is not quantifiable, and like other people who watch sports might disagree with me on, and that's fine. This is kind of what I'm looking for, not necessarily what you're looking for as a quarterback, but anyone who says the off-field stuff doesn't matter is just wrong to me. Because I think if you've been watching sports for years, you know that the personality matters and the off-field stuff does matter. Because, like, look at guys like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, just the two characters that everyone gravitates towards. Everyone wants to be around them because they're such likable guys, and they're just such good leaders of men in the locker room. They rally the troops. Drake May, another example. You can see his personality on Twitter and on TV and whatever. Like, the guys love him. The guys in the New England locker room rally around him because he's vocal, he cares, and he's just a good guy. And that's the stuff that it takes. This is Fernando Mendoza. This is why I'm not worried about Fernando Mendoza at all. And my next point will also hit this as well. You got to be a winner at the highest level. You got to be a winner. You got to win over time. You cannot be the reason your team loses. You got to lead them to wins, and you got to get it done at the highest level. Leading your teams to the playoff, leading your teams to the championship, that stuff matters. That no one can tell me the games don't matter, which that's a conversation Trevor Sigma and I had last week at the Combine. Was we've officially reached the games don't matter phase of the pre-draft process, because it seems like all the games that were played in November and December, people are just discrediting those and not valuing them as much as throwing against air at the Combine. And that's kind of what this conversation will transition into in a second. But winning at the highest level has to matter. You look at guys like Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts and the success they had in college. You don't accidentally do that. No one can tell me you accidentally do that. Like that, like, people told me the same stuff about Jalen Hurts and why it was not smart to draft him in the Eagles, and he just led them to the Super Bowl last year. So, like, And yet people are still debating if he's a good quarterback or not, which is silly to me because who cares? He won them a Super Bowl. The argument's over. Hurts' success from college could not go understated. That I believe he has the most career wins as a starter, as a collegiate starter. And like that was a guy who I just thought was going to make it in the NFL because of the success he had. Lamar Jackson, same. Two-time Heisman champion and a two-time Heisman finalist. Anyone who was overthinking Lamar at the next level wasn't watching the games in college. You got to be different, man. You got to be built different. You got to actually produce like numbers, and you got to actually produce wins. Joe Burrow. It's why the Joe Burrows and the Trevor Lawrences of the world were the safest picks ever, because you saw what they led their teams to. You saw them win a national championship for their university on the biggest stage. You saw them not collapse in a big moment versus a lot of these quarterbacks are just kind of hypothetical situations that we overthink. And it's like, I don't know. So what I'm getting into is that was kind of so those are my 5 factors for a quarterback. Let me rehash those. I want 2 full seasons as a starter. You have to have enough physical tools. You have to elevate others around you. You got to have the leadership and the aura, and you got to be a winner. You got to be a winner at the highest level. Those are my 5 factors of what I want in my franchise quarterback if I'm drafting one from college. So the reason I say all this is because every year we see quarterbacks who underperform during the season and disappoint relative to expectations. And then we see these same guys tear it up at the combine against no one because they're just testing athletic-wise. The combine should be used to split hairs. The combine should not be used to build your quarterback draft board. Now, the reason I want to make this specifically on quarterbacks this year, I don't want to say that the drills and the tests don't matter to the other positions, because they do for the other positions. I almost think like quarterback is the one position where I care more about what you did during the season and the on-field success versus just the throwing in the gym, in the open gym against no defenders. So that's good. I obviously want you to complete the pass when you're wide open. I don't want you to miss the pass. I'd rather you complete the pass when there's no defender there. But that's not what the combine's for. The combine is used to split hairs when you are divided between 2 prospects and you need a separator. If you're down to 2 guys and you need a separator, use the combine scores. Use the RAS scores there. That's where you flip on the combine and use it as a differentiator. Don't draft a guy because he had a good combine. And definitely do not fall for a quarterback just because they had a good combine. Otherwise, you end up with Zach Wilson on the Jets like they did several years ago. I could have told you that was a terrible pick the day they picked it. I didn't even, like, for me, as someone who's obsessed with college football and watches more than anybody, I barely knew much about Zach Wilson, and that's how I knew he wasn't going to be good. No offense. Like, I'm not saying, like, I know more than anyone. I'm just saying I thought Justin Fields was the easy pick right there, and they took Zach Wilson. So Fields was the one who had all the success in college, led his team to the playoff, beat Trevor Lawrence in the big game. I would have taken Fields. They didn't do that. And I still think Fields, like, again, they ended up with Fields, so it's probably a bad example now. Justin Fields hasn't exactly panned out. However, the point is they picked Wilson because he had a good combine. That was it. He played at BYU. He had one good season against subpar competition. Never impressed me. I never understood the pick. So and they made a big mistake. And 5 years later, they're still looking for a quarterback. I mean, Jets fans probably think they're always going to be searching for a quarterback. So that might just be the reality of the situation. But I bet you they are wishing they would have done more of their homework and actually like watch the season. Even Mac Jones would have been a better pick. Mac Jones at second overall probably is looking like a better pick than Justin Fields. And Mac Jones won the championship, which is exactly my point. The on-field success has to matter. The games has to matter. Like, Mac Jones led him to the championship that year. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence was going first overall. He was never not going first, but you probably could have seen that Mac Jones was like going to be pretty good at the next level based on the season he had. He had one of the best college football seasons in history. Like, go look at his stats. They are up there. They rivaled Joe Burrow's Heisman season. I'm not kidding. Devontae Smith won the Heisman that year, but Mac Jones was the signal caller. He was the one putting the ball on the money for those dudes. His box score numbers at quarterback that year were on par with Joe Burrow. So, like, that's all I'm saying there. But the point is that the college football success has to matter. And, like, you see these guys translate like, I want to say something like 30 of 32 quarterbacks have started like 25 plus games in college for their universities, which Ty Simpson is the bad example of this. He's only started one full season at Alabama. I believe he only started 15 games there in his career in 4 seasons. So that is a bit of a red flag to some NFL teams. There are some teams that are a little worried about it. I personally like Ty Simpson. I'm a guy who's higher on Ty Simpson than most, I would say, because I see the athlete there. I see the arm talent, and I think he doesn't get credit for being as mobile as he is. I also think he has a higher IQ and processing speed than a lot of people give him credit for. As a coach's son, this kid gets it. I think he's got the leadership, and I think he's got the other stuff too, like the personality. But in terms of the like 2 full seasons as a starter, he's only got 1. So like, that might be a quarterback you want to sit in the NFL and learn a little bit because just the lack of playtime, the lack of experience. So yeah, the quarterback. Now, I'm going to land the plane here, and I want to relate this to this year's NFL Draft Combine because there's a couple quarterbacks who really popped off the screen athletic-wise and tested well, and I'm just worried that teams are going to fall for them again. So I want to just give a little forewarning, and again, NFL teams – if you're watching this video, I mean, again, you can draft whoever you want. But this is just take my 2 cents for take it as you will. Drew Aller is probably the best example here. And I'm sure you guys probably knew I was alluding to Drew Aller as one. Anyway, hand up. So you're talking to a guy who is higher on Drew Aller than almost anyone who's written about football over the past 3 seasons because going back to when I was still at PFF, his sophomore year, I was hyping this dude up as a breakout. And I honestly think he was best. His best season at Penn State was his sophomore season. That first year as a starter. And then I kept waiting and waiting all the way up until this season. I still believed in Drew Aller and picked him willingly picked him and Penn State to win the national championship. I can't believe it. I don't know why. I thought I was smarter than that, and I fell for it again. And all the way up until the Oregon game itself, I still believed in Drew and thought he could get it done on the highest stage, on the highest level, and he just can't. Every big game, he just collapsed, choked, whatever you want to say, just the pressure. I don't know if it's the crowd, the pressure, the noise, just the protection breaking down, the not reading the defense. Like, he just felt so much like a deer in the headlights every time the lights were on. Every time it was a bright lights moment, every time it was a big game against a ranked opponent, he just constantly dropped the ball time after time. I don't know how you could feel confident drafting Drew Aller now after that. Again, you're talking to a guy who would have had him as his QB2 last season. I still think if Drew Aller came out last season for last draft, he would have been the Browns' 2nd overall pick and would be starting in Cleveland. And he still might end up going to the Browns because he's from Cleveland and because these scouts are falling in love with him again and because you see the arm strength he has, you see how far he can throw it in an open gym. I mean, I get it. And I don't want to make this just about Drew Aller or pick on him, but you're looking at someone who really like thought this kid was like had like Joe Flacco type of level, like Big Ben type of level of tools. And it's at the end of the day, you eventually have to win a big game, man, and you eventually have to get it done in a big moment. He is the reason his team lost every single time. I cannot take that away from him. I cannot unsee some of those interceptions he threw. The Notre Dame game. You literally had a game-winning drive right in front of you to go beat Ohio State or go get to the national championship and potentially rematch Ohio State, and it was just an awful interception. Oregon game. Brings him back, goes to double overtime. throws an awful interception right to Dylan Thieneman, who had a great combine last week. Another riser, safety, Dylan Thieneman out of Oregon. But it was just time and time. He was the reason his team lost at the end of games. And just making poor decisions, not reading the defense, not seeing safeties in the back end. And just that is just one where it's like some team is still going to take him in the second round. I'm calling that right now. There's a scout. There's a team who's going to fall in love with him in the pre-draft process and take him second round, and good luck. You do that if that's what you want to do. I just don't know how after every game we watched, one day I finally had to look myself in the mirror and be like, Mitch, Drew Allers doesn't have it. He's not the guy. And that was a tough day for me. But we had to accept that fate. So I can't draft Drew Aller this year. I can't do it after the college career he had. I get it. I get the tools, man. I see it. But yeah, I just let me down time after time. So I don't know how an NFL team could feel confident and comfortable taking that, thinking he's going to do better against better competition. You don't do worse in college and then suddenly you're amazing in the NFL. That's my thing. If anything, you should be amazing in college and then you're just kind of average in the NFL is normally how it goes. So that's my thing. Taylon Green is another example. However, I actually like Taylon Green and almost believe in him as an athlete and as a person. I think he's a great guy. He has a great personality. I've heard nothing but good things from him out of his camp and whatnot. And this is here's my thing with Taylon Green. This is who people thought Anthony Richardson was. Taylon Green is literally the quarterback that the Colts thought they were drafting 4th overall. Except Taylon Green was actually good in college. Taylon Green actually put up numbers over multiple seasons on end. I believe he started 4 seasons in his 5-year career, 2 at Boise State, 2 at Arkansas. The numbers this guy put up, like 2,800 passing, 900 rushing, 6'6", just a beast, monster quarterback, rocket arm. He ran a 4.37. Ran a 4.37 40. That's one of the fastest 40s of a quarterback ever. I would have to go back and check. That might be the fastest. I want to say Anthony Richardson ran a 4.43, so he cooked AR. He's better than Anthony Richardson. Like, I would argue anyone on that. Like, he had a better college career, better numbers at Arkansas, multiple seasons on end. Anthony Richardson started like 11 total games and got drafted 4th overall just for being a good athlete after putting up a 52 completion percentage. Taylon Green is only like a 60 completion percentage, similar molds of quarterbacks. I'm not saying you should take him 4th overall either, but that's my exact point, is if people look at those athletes and they just see that and they're like, I got to take this guy in the 1st round. I would pump the brakes a little because at the end of the day, they're playing the position of quarterback. It's not just being an athlete out there. You've seen it with Anthony Richardson, and I don't even want to throw Taylon Green in that same bucket because I do think he's better than Anthony Richardson. And I actually think he has a higher career ceiling and a better career path because I think he would be more willing to possibly change positions if that's what it takes to make an impact in the NFL. You want to help a team win. I've always said that's the goal. Helping a team win a Super Bowl is how you find your role in the NFL. And here's another quarterback that I think will have a role doing that, but it might not be as a quarterback, and that's Haynes King, another stellar athlete. This guy was a winner. This guy had a great personality. This guy was a leader. This guy was vocal in college. People loved him. People loved playing for him. Brent Key loves him, raves about him. This guy might be Taysom Hill at the next level. He's not the athlete Taysom Hill is. I don't know if doesn't have the size Taysom Hill has, but the running ability this guy has and just the overall toughness, Haynes King is going to help a team win. He's not going to be a drop back passer. He's not going to be a team starting quarterback. I implore a team to take a chance on Haynes King somewhere as a backup because he can help you win. He can come in on just some wildcat formation, some QB draws, QB run plays, sneaks, whatever you want. That is how you find your role in the NFL, and that is what I think Taylon Green is going to do as well. Might be more of a tight end, but I think him and Haynes King are the two guys I would be like, those are athletes who can help a team win in whatever role they they're willing to play. And their personalities, their leadership, their sacrifice, those are the guys that are willing to make those sacrifices. Just from being at their podiums, you can tell they got a good head on their shoulders and how they were raised. All right, now I want to land the plane here. I don't even know how I'm going to land the plane or what I'm even landing. But so the reason I say all this is because I feel like the combine gets so overblown in terms of a quarterback making one really good throw and then that gets aggregated on social media. And I think I will add Cade Klubnik to this because he's not a guy who's super toolsy. Like Drew Aller, I can understand why people are intrigued. And the tools, I get it. Cade Klubnik is a guy who almost like from Clemson doesn't have the tools, isn't a big guy or very aesthetically pleasing to watch on TV, and he didn't really put up any good numbers or win a lot of games, lost more games than the previous 4 quarterbacks at Clemson combined, and in 4 seasons, never really got better, and yet teams are still kind of falling for him. And so that's one where I'm like, I don't really get it with any of it. Like if you're looking for a backup like that, I think you should at least go after the guys who did have success in college. And this is all to say that college success has to matter at the end of the day someday, and it's why I feel so confident in Fernando Mendoza. I think I mentioned that a little bit earlier. It's why I'm not worried about Mendoza and why I think he has one of the highest floors of a quarterback that I've ever projected, because he checks the boxes that I mentioned earlier of the starting for multiple seasons. He has the tools, 6'5", big statured guy. Elevates others around him. Look what he did. Look what he brought this team to. Has the personality, the awesome goofiness character. He's a religious guy. That's like he's funny. He's got the personality. He's lovable. Everything you want. And he's a winner at the highest level. Just won the Heisman. Just won the national championship. Last 2 quarterbacks to do that and get picked first overall were Cam Newton and Joe Burrow. Two star quarterbacks in the NFL. So like there you go, right there. That is a good proxy right there for Fernando Mendoza, where you can feel confident drafting him and you know he's going to be successful. There's other guys that don't check those boxes who weren't even good in college, where I'm just like, I don't know why suddenly they're now going to be good in the NFL. You don't get the benefit of the doubt of playing 4 bad seasons in college and then suddenly I think you're going to be good in the NFL. It's just not how it works. Competition is so much better. Competition is so much harder, so much tougher. So I just think that there are 2 quarterbacks I personally like who are a little lower on consensus. I think if you're looking for a backup who checks those boxes of the starting multiple seasons and the like elevating others, like here's one. Luke Altmaier was a podium interview I was most impressed by of the quarterbacks, because this is a tough, gritty guy who just gets it, honestly. And I know that's cliche to say, but just being at his podium, I could tell that this guy's going to do whatever it takes to help make his teammates better and like get playtime. He's going, he first one in, last one to leave kind of guy, tough, gritty, good attitude, smart guy, smart football IQ, great accuracy underneath, a good arm, adequate enough arm. I'm not going to say as elite arm strength, but like Altmaier to me is a guy that if had a lot of college success, 3 seasons, I believe he 22 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions this season. So really good touchdown interception ratio. And he put up numbers for 3 good seasons at Illinois. He won a lot of games for them. That is a quarterback who you can see he elevated the players around him, made the guys better, was a 3-year starter, good enough arm, checks that box, good enough size, I believe he's 6'2", checks that box. And he won a lot of games for Illinois. I believe he was their winningest QB of the last decade or something. So brought him 2 back-to-back 9-win seasons, which is I can't remember the last time Illinois did that. So that's an example right there of if you're looking for a backup quarterback who actually had success in college and was actually good in college, go with Luke Altmaier. Or you could take my next QB prospect, who is my QB3, who, if you listen to my show, you probably think I'm the biggest Carson Beck fan, which I get laughed at for liking Carson Beck as a prospect because everybody just seems to hate the guy. And I think if your reason for not taking a chance in the 4th round on Carson Beck is because you don't like him off the field and you think he's a tool or whatever, like, I just think that's a silly reason. I just think that's dumb because there's a lot of quarterbacks who are tools. So I just think that's a silly reason not to draft a guy because a lot of people just don't like his personality and they're like, oh, I'm just out on him. But he's the winningest of all of them. He's 37-6 in his career as a starter, 69 career completion percentage, which is top 10 all time on the NCAA list. Ever among all college football quarterbacks ever. So 69 completion percentage. Had a 72 this year, which was second to only Julian Sayin. So people forget about that. I believe his yards are top 40 all time in the NCAA. So his his total passing yards for Carson Beck. So again, three seasons, led 2 different teams to the college football playoff. I just think if you're taking a chance, my point is if you're taking a chance on a quarterback who you're uncertain of, you should at least take a chance on the quarterback who is at least good in college. Take one of those versus like a Drew Aller or a Cade Klubnik who wasn't good in college. Because I just don't know why you're drafting them, and I don't know what you expect to get versus better competition. When like guys like Beck and Altmaier were pretty good against good competition, and I know Beck was like had the elite teams around him, but I still always say a quarterback has to get credit for making the throws. And there's a lot of QBs who would choke those games for Miami playoff, and no one can tell me otherwise. So again, I get laughed at from people in the media for liking Carson Beck, but it's not going to shock me at all when he's like a 8-year starter in the NFL and like a pretty decent one too. So we'll see. Yeah. So all right. That's all I got. It was a long tangent, long rant there. But that's kind of just my quarterback rant. Remember, don't fall for a quarterback just because they had a good combine. I can't stress that enough, that you don't want to fall for a quarterback just because they had a good combine. That's how you end up with Zach Wilson. We don't want to do that. The games matter first, and then you use the combine and the pro days to split hairs. That's all. That's what it's for. It's not to build your board. It's not to build your quarterback board. So that's my unsolicited advice. Take it as you will. I appreciate you guys listening. That is all I got for this week. I just kind of wanted to go off a little rant for quarterbacks there because I've just seen some insane things on Twitter. I mean, we all love overreactions, but I think Drew Aller is going to end up in the 1st round. That might be my bold prediction for this draft class. And saying that when he got hurt a couple months ago, I just would have never. I wouldn't have even thought he would have got drafted after the injury in October. So we'll see where he ends up. That's all I got for you guys today on the Point After with Mitch Kaiser. Thanks for tuning in. Again, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to be posting the podium interviews I got at the Combine on Twitter, so you can check those out. And we'll be dropping a Substack later this week. Next week, we will have a new guest on for Mock Draft Monday, and we'll get in a nice little cadence of that. 3 episodes per week, only episode this week. Again, I'm Mitch Kaiser. Thanks for watching The Point After.